Man smashes hammer into $100 million Buddha's head. The people in the room were instantly stunned. Immediately afterwards, the surface of the Buddha head began to fall off. Inside was a jade head of Wu Zetian Mingtang. Everyone was dumbfounded, because this Buddha head was kept by the old man of the Su family, but it was sold to the Japanese. Kido Arisen. He became known as a traitor to his country. His son lived in anonymity for 30 years, and his grandson, because of this incident, his father left him when he was 7 years old. He grew up with a bad name. 60 years later, the descendants of the Japanese Kido were ready to return this national treasure. But there is one requirement. A descendant of the Su family must come and claim it in person. But just a few days ago, the Su family's son was killed in a car accident. His grandson, Su Wan, became the only descendant. Su wishes to drink every day. He cheats and swindles in the antique market. On this day, before he had even sobered up, he was brought to the handover by a woman, Smoky. Su wishes looked up and saw, isn't this the Buddha's head that made the Su family a traitor to the country? But when he took a closer look, he found that the Buddha's head, worth 100 million, was a fake. In the evening, when Suwon returned home, the Japanese came to him and said that years ago, your father had written me a letter. He said that the head of the Buddha was a fake. Suwon knew in his heart, if he could only find the real Buddha's head, then he would be able to clear the injustice of 3 generations of his family. The next day, with the help of Yan Yan's resources, he found his father's former home. He wanted to find the location of the real Buddha's head. Once inside, Suwon instantly saw that there was a mezzanine inside the wall. He tore the note off the wall and found a brick on which was written Yin within Yang, not in the opposite of Yang. Su Wishes was confused. Then he pulled the brick out. After removing the bricks from the wall, he discovered that behind it were various antiques. By sorting the position of the real and fake antiques, Su wishes to launch the Morse code left by his father. He found the word Fugue. The other party was a family friend of the Su family. He was also his father's best friend. Then they found Fugue, but he didn't want Suwon to get involved because there was too much involved. It would put Suwon's life at risk, but in the end, they couldn't resist Suwon. He told them the location of the Buddha's head. It's in a village in Luoyang that specializes in forgeries. This village relies on forgeries for its livelihood. When they arrived at the village, they were tied up by the young village chief. They were going to sacrifice Suwon to him. Then they took Yan Yan as their wife. Luckily, Fugue arrived at that moment. He was an old friend of the old village chief of Jing village. The village chief let them go. He also heard Suwon say there was a Buddha's head worth $100 million inside his village's broken temple. He was even more excited. He hosted a feast for them. After a good meal, they arrived at the temple. The young village chief put the ancestral spinning star down flat. Then he turned the spinning plate underneath. The goddess of mercy in front of him turned with him. A hole appeared below. They unlocked the mechanism and made it to the bottom. Inside, they found the jade head of Wu Zetian Mingtang that we have been looking for, and the craftsmanship and materials used to make it. It was made in accordance with the Tang dynasty. But Suwon did not go forward to remove the head of the Buddha, because he saw a pattern on one side of the Buddha's head. He remembered that his father had told him before that the symbol represented a trap. As a result, the young village chief couldn't wait any longer, and he took off the Buddha's head. He took his gun and shot at the men. Before he could get a few minutes to go wild, he was shot and killed. It turned out that Fugue had come with his men. At that moment, the Medicine Clan came in with their men. The leader was a descendant of the Pill Clan. Their family is officially certified as antique masters. In reality, they were a counterfeiting group. And then, he prepared to take the Buddha away. At that moment, the cellar suddenly collapsed. His men covered his successful exit. Fugue, in order to protect Suwon and Yan Yan, he grabbed a gun from the ground and fought with them. In the end, the 3 of them found another exit in the cellar. They found another way out, but by now Fugue was already dead. Fugue was accidentally shot during the fight. The 2 men said a brief goodbye to Fugue. They left the cellar in a hurry. Here the Buddha's head was brought to the handover ceremony. He said that this was the real Buddha's head. He took part in the handover ceremony for Su Xian. As soon as the ceremony was completed, then the Buddha's head, worth $100 million, would be returned to his family. At that moment, Suwon limped in. He said loudly that neither of them was the Buddha's head. He said that he had the real Buddha's head. In fact, he wanted to get close to the Japanese's head. He told everyone, the Su family has been proud to guard the Buddha's head for generations. It had never been sold at all. Then he took out a hammer from his bag. He said Yin is within Yang but not Yang is right. He hit it with a hammer. Everyone in the audience was shocked by this scene. Before they could get over it, the Buddha's head slowly fell off. The real Mingtang jade Buddha head of Wu Zetian finally reappeared. The truth has been revealed. It turned out that the grandfather who made the wish did so was because the old monk had something in mind for the Buddha's head. In addition, there were various warlords fighting against each other. Suwon's grandfather had to do this. In order to protect the Buddha's head, he used the fake head of the Buddha to swap it for a prince. He was able to clear the name of the Su family for 3 generations. When he saw the letter hidden next to his father's tombstone, he finally understood his father's mistake. For the sake of his own safety, to keep Suwon out of this matter, he then lived in anonymity. Knowing the truth, Suwon, he could no longer control the tears in the corners of his eyes.